For centuries, history books told us Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. But what if that story was completely wrong? What if the first Europeans to set foot on North American soil came 500 years earlier, not sailing for Spain, but for glory, under the banner of the Raven? They braved the freezing North Atlantic, faced unknown lands, and carved a story into history that time tried to erase. This is the real story of the Vikings in North America. The Vikings, a people often painted as bloodthirsty raiders, helmeted barbarians storming the coasts of Europe. But this image, shaped by centuries of legend and pop culture, barely scratches the surface. They were explorers, skilled navigators, traders, and settlers. Their long ships were engineering marvels, light, flexible, and able to sail across oceans and up narrow rivers. This made them the perfect vessels for exploration. And in the late 10th and early 11th centuries, those ships sailed beyond the known world, to Greenland, and then even further west. The first whispers of these journeys came from the Icelandic sagas, oral histories passed down for generations and finally written in the 13th century. Two in particular, the saga of the Greenlanders and the saga of Eric the Red, tell a remarkable tale of Norse explorers sailing west of Greenland and discovering a mysterious land called Vinland. Meet Eric the Red, a fiery outlaw exiled from Iceland who founded the first Norse settlement in Greenland around 985 AD. His son Leif Erikson would carry the Viking legacy even further. Leif was said to be brave, curious, and deeply ambitious. Around the year 1000, he set sail west from Greenland, not just to explore, but to settle new land. What he found was a world unlike any the Vikings had seen, a land with forests, rivers, fish, game, and grapes, or something resembling them. This was Vinland, but Leif wasn't the only Norseman to journey there. Others followed, including Thorvald, his brother, and even a woman named Gudrid, who would give birth to a child in the New World. Yes, the first European birth in North America happened centuries before the Mayflower. But what was Vinland, really? Modern scholars now believe Vinland was part of present-day Newfoundland, Canada, specifically a site known as Lulz o' Meadows. In the 1960s, archaeologists discovered the remains of Norse-style longhouses and tools, confirming what the sagas suggested. The Vikings had indeed made it to North America. This wasn't a fantasy. It was real. The settlement was temporary, but the implications were massive. It meant the first Europeans to cross the Atlantic and set foot on American soil were not Spanish, Portuguese, or English. They were Vikings, yet they didn't stay. Why? The sagas speak of something else: encounters with indigenous peoples. The Norse called them Skraelings, likely referring to ancestors of the Inuit or First Nations groups. At first, the interactions were limited. Trade was attempted, but eventually, things turned violent. Thorvald, Leif's brother, was reportedly killed by an arrow during a skirmish. These clashes, combined with the challenges of resupply and isolation, likely doomed the settlement. The Vikings were fierce, but they were outnumbered, far from home in an unfamiliar and harsh environment. And so, after a few years, the Norse abandoned Vinland. The dream of a Western colony faded into legend, until archaeology caught up with myth nearly 1,000 years later. Why did history forget this story? Part of the reason is timing. The sagas weren't written down until centuries later. And for much of that time, they were dismissed as folklore or exaggerated legend, especially when Columbus's discovery became the dominant narrative. But another reason? The Vikings failed to colonize the land long term. Unlike the Spanish or British, they didn't bring armies or missionaries. They didn't rewrite the land. They visited and they left. It was only in the 20th century, with archaeology and carbon dating, that the truth began to re-emerge. In 1960, Norwegian explorer Helge Ingstad and his wife Anne Stein Ingstad discovered Lance o Meadows. Their find proved what the sagas had hinted all along. The Norse were here, and they were first. From the tools they left behind, we've learned about Norse ironworking in North America, something unknown to indigenous peoples at the time. We've found knitting styles unique to Norse culture. Even the layout of the houses matched Icelandic and Greenlandic design. This was no random stopover. It was a planned settlement attempt. What's more, satellite imagery and advanced scanning technology have identified possible new Norse sites in North America, yet to be fully explored. The story might be even bigger than we think. We're not just rewriting a chapter, we're reopening the book. The story of the Vikings in North America is more than just a historical footnote. It's a challenge to how we understand exploration, discovery, and the writing of history itself. It shows us that history isn't static. It evolves as we uncover new evidence, question old narratives, and listen to voices once ignored. It's about how oral tradition and hard science can come together to reveal the truth. And it forces us to ask, how many other stories have we lost or ignored because they didn't fit the narrative? So, the next time someone tells you Columbus discovered America, remember the Viking ships that cut through the freezing Atlantic centuries earlier. Remember Leif Erikson. Remember Vinland. Remember the forgotten voyagers who dared to go west when no one else would. They didn't conquer, they didn't colonize, but they came. And that alone rewrites history. This isn't just about the past. It's about how we see the world and who we choose to remember. History isn't written in ink. It's carved in stone, buried in earth, and waiting to be uncovered. If this blew your mind, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started uncovering the real stories behind the myths. Like, share, comment below. Should the Viking discovery of America be taught in schools? Let's talk. Thanks for watching, and remember, history is deeper than you think.